Welcome to this training course in using the Benchmark Examination Center Management file. Thank you for choosing Benchmark as your assessment agency. Before we get to the details contained in our file, we want to emphasize that in order for a legitimate assessment to take place, it is compulsory that this file is physically present in the examination venue throughout the duration of the examinations. Please note that the file must be presented to Benchmark and Umalusi exam monitors. So, it is essential that you ensure that you have the file present and correctly completed for the duration of the examinations taking place at your venue. Let's get started. Note that the file dividers have been alphabetized to make finding documentation convenient. Page 1 and 2 of your Examination Center Management file are pretty much self-explanatory. You need to fill in the center name, the center number, and the name of the center manager on the first page. The center manager may also be the chief invigilator, although this is not always the case. Page 2 is the table of contents for the file. You can use this page to check that you have all the necessary documents and that you have completed all the requirements. The examination timetable will be updated annually and emailed to you. Please ensure that you have the correct timetable in the folder. Next comes the checklist for accreditation, the self-evaluation form. It evaluates the availability and accessibility of the exam center. This form must be completed by the center manager in order to qualify for the center to be accredited as a suitable venue of conducting exams. Please note, there are 2 pages and they must be completed, signed and dated. The checklist must be kept in the file for verification by Benchmark and/or Umalusi exam monitors. The checklist for accreditation feedback to the exam center will be completed by Benchmark and given to the center manager or chief invigilator for filing. The purpose of this document is for Benchmark to provide constructive feedback to a prospective exam center on whether the center meets minimum requirements to conduct exams. This form is for their use only. The letter of appointment for the chief invigilator is included in the file as an example only. You must not fill this in. A completed copy will be sent from Benchmark. When it arrives, it will also need to be signed by the person chosen as the chief invigilator. It is important to note that a Benchmark official is the only person who can appoint the chief invigilator. The chief invigilator will in turn appoint other invigilators who will assist during the writing of exams. Prospective chief invigilators should take the opportunity to read through the sample in order to prepare for the duties required of the chief invigilator. The document describes the duties and responsibilities, how to prepare the venue for the examinations, what concessions may be made, and the examination procedures. Exam centers should also take note that the center manager and the chief invigilator must sign, date, and have the last page witnessed. These 2 roles may be filled by the same person. It is only necessary to have one or the other sign if not. The service level agreement is also an example like the previous document. A completed copy will be sent to you by Benchmark. Upon receipt of the document, you need to insert the address where the document is being signed, the signature of the center manager or chief invigilator, and the date on which it was signed. The completed document must then be placed in the section. You will receive a letter of accreditation from Benchmark once the exam center has been verified or inspected by a Benchmark official. The Benchmark official will use the checklist for accreditation feedback to the exam center document to inspect your center. The letter goes into the file under divider F when you receive it, after the service level agreement. Section GH starts with the instructions to the invigilator. The chief invigilator, as appointed in Section D, is responsible to appoint their own invigilators, as well as relief invigilators if required. The number of invigilators will depend on how many learners are writing. There should be 1 invigilator for every 30 learners. Please note, you will need to make copies of this document for each invigilator appointed by the chief invigilator. Don't use the original. The invigilator must sign their copy to show his or her agreement to abiding by the Code of Conduct and decisions made by the committee. No one may be allowed to invigilate without signing and dating this document. It must also be signed by the centre manager or chief invigilator. Remind the invigilators that they must read the instructions on page 3 to the learners in the beginning of each examination session. They should thoroughly acquaint themselves with all the instructions that pertain to their role as invigilators before the examination as well. Included in this section are the 2 invigilator letters of appointment, one version for a regular invigilator and one for a relief invigilator. Once again, you need to make copies of these documents. Don't use the originals. Each invigilator needs to read through, sign, date, and have the designated section witnessed. The chief invigilator or centre manager must also sign, date, and have the back page witnessed for each invigilator appointed. Copies of the signed invigilator appointment letters must be kept in the file. Last in this section, you must insert the certificates for the online invigilator training program in the sleeve provided. All chief and regular invigilators must have a certificate showing that they have completed and passed the online training. No one is permitted to invigilate an AET level NQF1 exam without any evidence of training. Since this course is repeated annually, the certificates must be for the current period. If you require invigilation training, please contact us at info@benchmark.co.za and we will send you a registration form. Section IJ contains the invigilator timetable and register. Remember to make copies. This form will be used for each exam written at your centre. Both the regular and the relief invigilators must sign and date the register. Also important is the section logging who checked the toilets and at what time. This check must happen just before the exam starts as a measure to prevent cheating. The next document discusses the procedures for the pre-examination meeting. This meeting with the learners is necessary. It must take place at least 24 hours before the examination in order to inform the learners of exactly what is expected of them during the exam. Included in this document is a suggested agenda for the information needing discussion during the meeting. Using this agenda will ensure that no critical information is omitted. The centre form for receipt and dispatch of examination scripts is to log how many and which exam scripts you receive and how many and which scripts you send back. You are permitted to open the courier bag only and not the tamper-proof plastic bag containing the exam scripts. The tamper-proof bag has a sticker on it with all the necessary information for you to record the information about the package on the centre form for receipt and dispatch. The sticker will tell you how many scripts are included and which subjects the scripts are for. You need to inspect the package to make sure that it has not been tampered with or opened. This is another measure to prevent cheating. You may only open the tamper-proof bag in the exam room at the time of the exam. Once the exam has been completed, you then collect, count, and repackage the scripts in a spare tamper-proof bag provided and send them back. You fill these details in on the next part of the form under dispatch. You must fill in your name, surname, the number of scripts sent, the date they were sent, and your designation and signature. An exam attendance register will be included in the exam script package. It must be filled in and signed by each learner. Once it has been completely filled in, you must make a copy of it for your file and send the completed original back with the scripts. You will insert your copy here under L for future reference when you receive your exam results. The exam seating plan must be drawn up before the exam and a copy pinned up outside the exam room. This is a diagram of the seating arrangements in the exam room and must show accurately how the learners were arranged in the venue. Learners must be seated in numerical order according to their candidate examination numbers provided by Benchmark once your learners are registered. Candidate exam numbers can be found on the exam entry permits sent to you at least 1 week before the exam. Candidate entry permits must be given to the learners on the day of the exam as they walk into the exam venue. The Umalusi and/or benchmark exam monitor will need to check whether candidates have their IDs and individual entry permits on their desk before commencing with the exam. Please note that it is an irregularity for candidates to be seated contrary to the seating plan. After the exam, the seating plan must be taken down and placed in the file. You will need a plan for every exam session, so you must make enough copies of the form for each session. Under Section N, you will find the register for logging all irregularities. The documents in this section include a register form, a guide to identify what constitutes an irregularity, a list of resolutions that Benchmark will take if an irregularity occurs at your center, and the report that must be sent to Benchmark detailing any irregularities that occurred during examinations. You will need to make copies of the irregularities report for each exam session. Invigilators should thoroughly acquaint themselves with the various irregularities, including those on the part of examination officials. Note that there is a section on the report that must be completed by the individual accused of committing the irregularity. The document must be dated and signed. The register of learners leaving the exam room during the examination must be filled in, should any learner need to leave the room while the exam is still in progress. There must be a register for each exam, the reason the learner is leaving the room, and the action the invigilator or relief invigilator takes, i.e., escorting the learner to the toilet, must be logged on the form. Next comes the Emergency Evacuation and Contingency Plan. This is a health and safety requirement, but it only pertains to the examination venue. It isn't necessary to detail a plan for your whole complex or building. You may want to consult your health and safety representative regarding the best evacuation route and so on. You need to draw up this evacuation plan showing the escape route and post it outside the exam room, preferably on the door, so that all can see it as they enter. It should be removed and placed in the file once all exams are completed. The exam monitor attendance register must be signed by all exam monitors from both Benchmark and/or Umalusi. It is the responsibility of the Chief Invigilator to ensure that this happens. Take note, no unidentified examination monitors will be allowed in the exam venue under any circumstances. Monitors must produce identification and must fill in the register. The next document in this section is the Umalusi monitoring of the writing phase of the examination instruction manual. This is for reference only. It explains how Umalusi evaluates an exam center and is there to give you an idea of what to expect when an Umalusi monitor is present. It is recommended that you read through it so that your exam center can be prepared beforehand. Section S contains the Exam Conduct Daily Report. You will need to fill this out for every exam and submit it daily, shortly after the exam. Make sure that you have enough copies. Once you have completed it, you need to scan it and send it via email to Benchmark. This needs to be done for every exam written on a particular day. After scanning it, you place the original in the file as a record. Section TU has an example of a past exam report as a reference for center managers to support their facilitators. It is a good idea to share these reports with the facilitators who can use them to acquaint themselves with the various procedures and prepare the learners for the exams. Finally, there is a section dealing with concessions. Concessions may be requested if learners have learning difficulties or disabilities that prevent them from writing an exam in the conventional way. This section includes various types of barriers to learning and writing of exams, and guidelines for what qualifies as a concession. A form for requesting a concession and an appeal form for when a concession is not granted can also be found in this section. Once again, make sure you have enough copies for each learner who may need to apply. Read through the guide, fill in the forms as indicated, and send these to Benchmark with the supporting documentation required on the form. The supporting documentation would be a specialist assessment or medical report from a recognized medical practitioner. A stamp is required. Well done! You have completed the review of the Exam Centre Management file. This file can also be downloaded on our website at www.benchmark.co.za/examination. Use the table of contents to check that you have all the required documentation, and be thorough in compiling, reading, and completing all the forms. Chief Invigilators are reminded to have the following on the day of examination: the Centre Examination Management file, present within the examination venue, candidate examination entry permits, stapled to a copy of the candidate's ID document or passport, a clock in each examination venue, the examination question papers, a Chief Invigilator badge and relevant identification, such as ID or passport or driver's license. If you make sure that you follow all the procedures, you will have a successful examination session.